What's good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Erik Turner. And Erik, the heater that we're on.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if we had a heat check, it doesn't matter. Like, we're still shooting from the logo and everything's still going in. Back to back episodes in the film room with tremendous guests.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good time to be in the Cover One Film Room.
Yes, and we have another guest that has come on the show before. So he's been through the ringer with us a few times when we're talking X's and O's, film, advanced metrics. None other than Gregory Rousseau, starting defensive end from the Buffalo Bills. Greg, thanks again for joining us in the film room, brother.
For sure. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
We have to say also, right, and congratulations, brother.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the contract.
Thank
You've
you.
earned it. We've talked prior, to the show about your development, how far you've come from Miami, man. But congrats on earning that contract.
Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, we want to talk some scheme stuff to kick off this show, Greg. And so one thing that I think a lot of fans don't realize is the scheme of the Bills and how you guys play a lot of too high coverages, too high safeties deep, and how just that alone, the coverages and having those safeties deep, can affect you as a defensive end, whether you're talking in the run or the pass. So can you kind of tell us about and explain to us the responsibilities and stress that type of scheme puts on you as a defensive end, not just from a run standpoint, but also as a pass rusher?
Yeah, I'd say, like you said, we do a lot of 6-man boxes and split safety to stop, obviously there's a lot of good quarterbacks out there and a lot of good receivers out there. So it's hard if you got your corner pressed or whatever in a single coverage on the outside. It's easy to throw it up over there and you kind of leaving him on the island. So like you said, the split safety thing really helps the defense, but at the same time in the run game puts a lot of stress on us up front because we're short a gap. So it's like somebody kind of has to make a play or somebody kind of has to play two gaps. So even though you might have the C gap, you might have the gap and a half back outside because you kind of short somebody. Even though you might have somebody, it might be the safety that's fitting from 15 yards or however many yards it is back there. So that's going to be a big play if you let that get past. So it's kind of something we take pride in on our defense, and it's all about trying to stop the run with 6 in the box, because if we can do that, you can really beat anybody, because then you're forcing the quarterback to throw into tougher looks to read. When you got two safeties, you can mix it up, and you got just more people back there in general. But it does get dicey in the run game, and it's a challenge for sure. But we embrace it up front. It's something that we do a good job at most of the time. But sometimes you're going against good teams, and they have their leaky yards. But it's also, like I said, it's something that we know before the game, like we talk about it. If we could do that, we know we have a really, really, really good chance of winning the game, because we're going to make them one-dimensional.
And your ability to function within the Bills defense in a variety of those box counts, it shows up in a significant amount of ways. So 6-man boxes or less, 22 tackles for you, third most, 16 of those solo, second most, 4 tackles for loss, second most, 7-man boxes, 14 tackles, 15th, 9 solo, which is 6th, 5 tackles for loss, which is first, and then 7-man boxes or less, kind of broadening it further. 36 tackles for you, which is second, 25 solo, which is second, and then 9 tackles for loss, which is first. So you see it statistically in your play and what you've been able to do. And I want to also kind of tie that into something you just mentioned. We've talked about on the show a bunch from a run fit standpoint in analyzing the tape, but also where we want to see the defense going forward. But we talk about what this Bills defense has been traditionally, like one gap penetrating front, but then we talk about more gap and a half and 2 gapping. You mentioned that briefly. Just talk about some of the particulars in that and the differences for you when you have just a single gap responsibility versus more and gap and a half and 2, and the kind of the difference between all 3 of those, because it significantly impacts how you come off the ball and what you're doing.
100%. I'd say, let's say I have a situation where I'm thinking we have 6-man box and it's like it's a normal defense, and I'm thinking I might have a gap and a half if it's, let's say, belly kick and then running back bounces outside. Even though I had the C gap, he might bounce outside the C gap. So I'm thinking I got a gap and a half. The way I'm coming at the ball, I'm thinking like hands at helmet and knocking that tight end back and putting my eyes in my gap, and then being able to arm over, get back outside the D gap if it is belly or something like that. So I mean, that's a situation for, let's say, 1st and 10, and they just call a normal play. But I also would say that play call puts you more into a run mindset because we're short somebody in the box. So you see sometimes when they transit a play like that on 1st and 10, then they transition to like boot or something like that, it's like you might be a little slower to get on your rush because you're thinking like, this is my C gap, and the tight end already is outside you. Your tight end's trying to stop you from getting outside. And if it's a pass play, your job is to get outside. And then opposed to a play like, let's say we're bringing 5 or whatever, I know like my gap is outside. I'm just going. I'm whether a
Yeah,
tight end tries to reach me or it's a pass, I'm just going and I'm playing more. I wouldn't say more aggressive, but just more definitive. But like I know I'm going outside, and that's my track,
I
and I'm
love
just
that.
going that way. So I mean, personally, I'm sure all of us up front like those plays better because we know we can just go, and
Yeah,
it's a lot easier. But I mean, when you can make a play and and you're responsible at one gap, but you're going to the other one, that's what those plays they're slept on. They don't show up on ESPN the next day or whatever. But
right.
those are big plays, and those plays turn into 2nd and 9 or 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 7, and
Hmm.
you celebrate the plays on 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 8 when it's a sack or whatever. But the plays that get you there, that's what's important. And then when you see teams lose games, a lot of times it happens to all the teams in the league. It's usually because teams are 2nd and 5, and then 3rd and 2, and then 3rd and 1, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 1. That's how, you know what I'm saying? That's when it gets hard to win. So because if you can make plays early in those downs, yeah, team might get a couple 3rd and longs on you, but that's not a consistent formula for
Right.
that team, for the other offense to rely on, like, oh, we're going to convert every 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. Like, that's not, they don't want to live in that world. So, I mean, it all really comes down to, I think, winning really comes down to stopping the run, 1st and down, being able to transition into a pass rush and getting some pressure on the quarterback, and then forcing those situations that we want to live in, 2nd and 7 plus, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, when we can really pin our ears back and start running games and start
Hmm.
getting creative with what we want to do and how we want to attack on defense. Because if it's 3rd and 2, we're not at their mercy, but they have a lot of things open, especially
Yeah.
field position wise. They're past the 35 nowadays. They're 35. They're probably going for it, and then that goes all the way into, you know what I'm saying. So one first down, pretty much with the new kickoff rule, it's like four down territory for the rest of the field. So if you're living in that 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 world, it's tough. It's really tough to get wins.
And I love that answer, because that's exactly what we're looking for when we're asking that question, because the scheme, the 2 high safety scheme, the light boxes, the nickel, 95% of the time plays into how you as a run defender, first of all, are in your mindset as a pass rusher. Because like you said, initially in these situations with light boxes, you have to think from a run perspective first, then
Yep.
transition to a pass rusher. And that run to pass transition it's got to happen on a blink of a
Fast.
dime.
Yeah.
But it's also another thing that plays to your strengths, which is your length and your size, because you're getting your hands on that lineman quickly, and then you're again peaking, you're processing, and then transitioning to a pass rusher. And that is not something that guys that are smaller and shorter than you, and especially arm length wise, have the ability to do. And that's why I think this game fits you so well, because you can do that. You can play the run with the best of them, but at the same time, you can transition from that run defender with these light boxes and in this scheme into a pass rusher.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on.
Yeah, even some of the things you talked about there, like in giving that answer, like you see it on the tape all the time. Like we'll watch you like control a tight end or a tackle.
Yeah.
And then because of your length, you could just almost like cover an entire other gap and be like, nah, come here. And just like grab that running back
sure.
and like reel
For
him
sure.
in. Yeah, like that type of ability for you. You see it regularly. Continuing that aspect, the rush side of it. So talk a little bit run, talking a little bit pass rush now. We've seen you line up on multiple sides, and we get a lot of stuff from a lot of fans in terms of what side they think you are best at as a rusher. So when it comes for you, rushing from the left, rushing from the right, do you have a preference? Do you think one side suits you better? And within that, who or what decides what side you rush from?
I'd say what decides it to start with would kind of just be like a personnel thing, and other dudes on the field and kind of trying to move everybody around. And if this guy isn't as good on at this side, but this guy could kind of play both pretty well, I feel like that's when they kind of move it around. Like last year with Vaughn, he kind of wanted to play left, so I was just like, cool, it's whatever. I'll play the right and just work on my game over there, especially being a younger player. So to answer the other part of the question, I would say I like the left more, but at the same time, because it's like when you make an inside move on the right, it's almost as if you're rushing on the left.
You're left,
I
yeah.
do like making inside moves on the right, and then I also just like the left because that's just my natural like hip flip, and I'm left-handed, so being able to use this hand to kind of move hands out of the way or whatever on this side, I like that. But at the same time, like I said, with the left-handed thing, if I'm on the right side, I could stab and then arm over with my left hand because I'm left-handed. So
Right.
I like the left more. I also like the left a little bit more in the run game too, just be able to control the outside arm in the run game. I mean, in the run game, or like run game transitioning to play action game as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when it comes to left versus right, now will the pass set, whether it's a vertical, angle, jump set from the offensive lineman, does that change which side you maybe prefer, and maybe because of the go-to moves and transitions that you have from
Yeah,
each side.
yeah, I'd say if when it comes to a jump set, if I'm on the right side, I know I can just put my foot in the ground and go inside real quick. If I have the freedom to do that on that play, so I'd say it does change it. It does change it.
When you're studying, last time we had you on the show, we asked you like film study habits and how you prepare and what you were
Yeah,
doing and how you see the game. Quarterback drops. Obviously, that's huge part of your world. You're rushing the QB. You're trying to get to where you think they're going to get to. Do
hmm
you get any kind of data, or do you work in like your film preparation on a QB's typical drop back or like spots in the pocket, knowing like kind of this is how they like to drop back, this is where they like to set up from, and then how you build that into your rush plan for the week?
yeah, I would definitely say so. And I mean, like for example, if you have a guy who's dropping like more like 90 yards and it's a little bit deeper, and you're running, let's say like a TE game where the three techs getting that B gap, then I know like instead of maybe on a week where the week before I might have done it in 3 steps or two quick steps or whatever, on this week I might have to do whole 4 steps and kind of give the O lineman a stab first and then come underneath. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say it changes things like that. I'd say when it comes to my one-on-one plan, I'm still focused on just winning and just winning tight first and foremost, opposed to winning like just around all the way around the loop.
Wide,
Because
yeah.
nowadays, like I feel like 70% of quarterbacks are athletic, and if they see a little, you know what I'm saying, a little
Yeah.
Yeah.
crease or whatever, they're gonna step out and make a play. Even the ones that don't like to run, they can still improvise and kind of extend plays. And I feel like that's when you're really putting the defense in the secondary in a hard spot when they're trying to defend receivers that are running 2, 3 routes because the quarterback's running around. So it's kind of like you don't want to get too loose with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the other thing that comes into play when it comes to quarterback drops, ball game now,
Mhm.
it's one thing that we've seen and talked about against the Bills defense. You guys see a lot of quick game, a lot of the
Yeah,
balls out very quickly because of the
yeah.
style of defense you guys play and how the offense wants to remain efficient and stay on track. And so, again, your pass rush plan has to change, not just on the depth of the quarterback and where he's setting up, whether it's 8 yards versus 9.5 yards,
hmm
but also how quickly that
Quick
ball
is
can
getting the
come
ball
out
out.
and,
Yeah,
and you can get your hands up as well, right?
exactly, exactly. That's really a way that I've seen us get attacked a lot. Just quick passes, the RPOs, you know what I'm saying, that type
Yeah.
of stuff, and kind of just it's real annoying as a D lineman. But I
Yeah.
feel like it's becoming more part of the game. I feel like
Yeah.
year after year, especially with when dudes have fast, quick receivers that they can just get into space real quick and they can get out there and try to get him to make a play.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
And
got to be super annoying for you. It's super annoying for us. Like we've talked about it
yes,
so much
we
of the
talked about
season.
it so much this offseason, and even
Yeah,
we even asked Terrell Bernard about it last week because the opposing offenses, how they want to do ball control style,
yeah,
keep Josh off the field,
off the field.
off the
Yep.
field, but also quick game plays into that because it's that
hmm
short, quick passing game and it's
hmm
efficient. It's getting the ball out and then
hmm
matriculating down the field, which yes, it can be very difficult to do to put 10 plays, 12 plays together for a touchdown, but if they're
Yeah.
possessing the ball and keeping it away from Josh, that has been the game plan, especially last year. And so we saw a bunch of that quick game stuff against you guys last year in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like when we played KC, I remember the whole first drive. I felt like like he wasn't holding on to the ball. Yeah, it was just like quick, 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 like all the way. I don't know if they scored that drive. But it felt like all the way down the field. It was just quick, 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 quick run game, quick,
Yeah.
quick run game. It's
Bunch
like
of RPOs working into it. Mahomes
RPOs.
is
Yeah.
spitting that
Yeah,
ball out
Mhm.
quick.
yeah, fast. But like you said, yeah, it was run action. Like if I tackle was in front of me, he would come and reach me, and then they'll boom, throw quick little slant. So I mean, it's a good strategy until it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's when playmaking comes in. You know what I'm saying? Force fumble, whatever it
Mhm.
is, tip pass up in the air, uh, just things like that kind of get the OC out of his comfort zone. But it's tough to stop. It is.
And you mentioned the Chiefs game and how the season ended. So I want to talk about your responsibilities in that game, the defensive end's
hmm
responsibility in that game. What did the Chiefs do to you guys? You kind of touched upon it that in that final game that challenged your responsibilities that we talked about earlier. Again, run to pass transition and things
Yeah,
like that. You mentioned RPOs, a quick game, but specifically the contain responsibilities on some of those
yeah,
third and fourth and ones, the short
yeah.
yardage sprint outs, those bootlegs, how that challenges you as a defensive end in that game.
Yeah, I'd say the way it challenges me would be, I mean, a lot of times when we're just in our normal defense, we got the normal gas we got, and then the DNs aren't way outside because
Right.
if you're way outside in nine techs and it's third and one or fourth and one, like you can just literally just hand the ball to the running back, and if
Yeah.
you have now the linebacker who's 5 yards off the ball get to the running back before he can gain 1 yard. That's not even fair to ask
Right.
any linebacker, safety, nickel, or whoever. So I mean, we're kind of D lines on short yardage who condense. So a lot of times on those plays when they're getting outside, it would be like 3rd and 1 or whatever, and then we're all thinking run, fullback, belly dive. Like the
You're
first time we
crashing.
played him in Orchard Park, they kept handing it to that fullback or running back, and it was like a little dive play. And we stopped it a lot. But
He was the up back, right? And I think in the game, the last game, they put Hunt there. I think they put Hunt there in the last game. So you had
and
to
they gave it to him too, and they gave it to Hunt too to start, I think, or they gave it to him once or twice in the short yardage, and then they but off of that, with that same formation, they started running the boot. So it's like
speed boot.
As a DN, you're thinking like, yo, I got this gap right here, and ain't nothing. There's nobody who's gonna run through my gap on short yardage. So it's like in those situations, it gets dicey because it's like. And I'd also say it all goes back to the down and distance when you look at it. It's less about the play. It's more about the fact that it's 3rd and 1. So the offense, you know what I'm saying? They kind of got you where they want you to think and run, then boom, they run a boot. And I could have adjusted to it better personally, but at the same time, I'm not the type to try to guess plays. Because then that one time where you're like, oh, this one's a boot, and you run out there and then they hand it off in your gap and it's a 50-yard touchdown, like, then you're really going to be getting looked at crazy because that's actually your job. And we preach a lot about just doing your job. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, doing your job comes with being able to make adjustments and be like, I got to move this over here, change this over here. But at the same time, it's like at the end of the day, like our base fundamentals, like, hey, if you got this gap, you got this gap for the most part, especially on a play like 3rd and 1.
Yeah. And that ties into what you talked about earlier. If you have offenses that are winning on those early downs,
on first down,
they're winning on 1st and 2nd. You're sitting there in 3rd and short.
Exactly.
And to your point earlier, even if they don't get it on 3rd and short, it's still probably 4th and short.
Yeah, fourth and short, 4th and inches,
which they converted on.
So they'll probably go for that, and it puts you like as an edge or defensive end, however anybody wants to verbalize it. It puts you in a really difficult spot just with those, like you mentioned a bunch of them, like you have those BCR responsibilities, like the boot, like counter, like the burst stuff. You're trying to make a regular run. Like you're in a spot where you have multiple responsibilities. And then if you add in any type of like schematic, like Jedi mind tricks, like a team like the Chiefs, like to do, if you added in,
they had
with
a good plan.
they did.
They did.
And it all stacks with, losing a little bit on early downs and
first down. First, second down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about, I'd say it's more about and it doesn't get celebrated because that's not what the moment comes down to when you're watching the game. It's not like, oh, this is 1st and 10. Like, here we go. It's like, it's about, this is 3rd and 2 or whatever. It's about the 3rd downs and the 4th downs, but it's really about that. It's really about that. And this is not for just our defense, it's for any defense. It's really about that 6-yard run on 1st down. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or that 8-yard run on 1st down. And it's about that. That's the problem more so than the short yardage conversions. It's about when you win that 1st down, the life gets so much easier, and vice versa. If you're on offense and you have a play where incomplete 1st down or whatever, 2nd and 10, like now the OC is like looking at his play sheet like, all right, like you know what I'm saying? Like what do I do?
Starts to shrink a little bit.
It gets a lot smaller. Yeah, exactly.
No, those are great points, man, and things that we're going to talk about here also in the film portion of this. So let's get into some of the film. We're going to start with some of your run defense stuff, Greg. And this is I love this play against the Broncos. One, because we broke it down with Terrell Bernard last week. The other half of it, the pass RPO screen half of it. But I want to talk about it from an answers standpoint for you on this tackle for loss against the Broncos, because last week Terrell broke this down saying that he changed the coverage to man to the top of the screen because of Mims and that 4-strong RPO screen that they showed heavily on film. But we didn't get to talk about the run side of this, where as Bernard is in man coverage on Mims, it lightens the box down. Now there's a 5-man box, and you guys had answers for this throughout the year.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, right now they got somebody for the holding line, and they got somebody for Lano. So it's 5 on 5, and it's like one of those situations where it's like somebody just got to make a play. So we run this little kind of just like pop and slide underneath. So then it's kind of like you cover 2 gaps at once.
Right.
Even if you're not able to make the play, you're still making it bounce out, hopefully wide enough for Milano to scrape over the top. So
yes. And that was my specific follow-up like for this. And you touched on it a bit. Like, so they've got 5 up front to handle the 4 down that you got plus Milano. So you got a hat on a hat, 5 on 5. But because there's 5 blockers, that means there's 6 gaps. So you guys are
Mm-hmm.
out gap because you only have
Yep.
5 bodies for the 6 gaps. So this type of game allows you to kind of steal a gap or play and kind of erase one and still make a play on it. And then you make a tremendous individual play there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we saw this in week 1 as well. And
Yep.
again, same type of thing where, you guys are in a 2-high shell. You pretty much have a light box because you see Bernard playing the screen off here, and they're actually even pulling the center here. And you once again kind of exchange gaps. You gap exchange there where you're spiking inside, hopefully allowing Williams to get over the top and scrape over the top to make the tackle. But you blow this play up yourself.
For sure, definitely. And I feel like this one is slightly different than the other one since they're pulling and stuff, but it's all about, I feel like if I can get the way I look at it is like if I can get that tackle, to kind of just cross my face, it's almost like if he goes too far outside of me, I'm also covering the gap that's outside of the tackle. So it's like now I'm covering 2 gaps because there's no way he's getting outside me right now because the tackle's on the other side and I'm already stacking the tackle. I'm where the tackle was at this point. So it's like now he's got to cut up. And even if I don't make the tackle, I got Vaughn coming, I got DQ coming on the backside. So yeah.
Talk about as soon as you get inside that tackle there and you see that pulling center coming from you, what's going through your head and what's like the next step for you as soon as you kind of see that flash of color?
I'd say the first step is like that's why I didn't really play into the center like aggressively because I'm trying to stack the tackle. So I'm trying to get to where the tackle was. See, I kind of stepped out. I'm trying to get to where he was because I know if I can get to where he was and get like 1 or 2 yards up the field, I know there's really no room for the running back to go. And then at that point, I'm like, all right, let me just kind of slow play the center and buy time for my guys. But I end up being able to just keep them off me with a little push, and then the running back runs right to me.
Yeah, that's such a good, even if you didn't make that tackle, like that's such a good play because you cut off that outside and then you force him back towards your help. And then I think this one, again, you end up making the play. So I'm talking on both sides of my mouth a little bit, but this one I think it's a good example of like doing your job. Like you are fitting that responsibility and trying to cut off an entire aspect of the field outside of the hashes to play for the rest of the defense.
Exactly.
Now, one thing I want to ask you about too is, the alignment of a running back. Obviously you picked up on the track that he was running. It was kind of flat in front of the quarterback in this, read type look. But the depth of the running back and where he lines, if the running back is a little deeper or he's a little in front of the running back, in front of the quarterback, what does that signal to you on what type of plays or run track you may see from that running back?
Yeah, I'd say when we see that running back in the B gap right there, we're thinking more so running. And whenever he's like not way behind the quarterback, we're thinking outside runs too. So I mean, and they kept running this play during the game, and they changed it up by putting the tight end in front of me and still run it like in a different way. But I mean that path, it's kind of screaming run because a lot of times when he's child out wide, he's closer to stacking, the running back's closer to stacking number 73, and then you can kind of be like, all right, this is a pass play. And I'd also say you can look at how, if you go back to the beginning of the play, you can see how number 70 and 73, but I'm looking at 70, he's crowding the ball. He looks like he's damn near past the guard. You know what I'm saying? Like he's ready to run block. So I'm thinking 100% on this play before the play, like it's run.
Oh, I love
awesome
that. Yeah,
stuff. Awesome
you're keying in on his stance. And
because he doesn't have his left foot's not back at all. He's like square. His stance is almost like a linebacker's before the play. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's back a little bit, but not much.
So let's get into some of your pass rush stuff, and
cool.
Obviously a lot of your power moves are where you hang your hat. But I'm gonna start with this one. Obviously, a really big play against the Colts where you use your long arm from the right side here. So talk to us about maybe what you saw on film versus this tackle, how you thought you could win against this tackle and the Colts tackles altogether. And of course, walk us through how you made this play for the strip sack there against the Colts.
Yeah. Well, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the play, I'm looking at the tackle, and before the play, even though the tight ends, and that can get dicey when you got those 2 times in front of you. It feels like a run, but that tackle, the way he got his left hand on his knee, that he's screaming pass. So before the play, like I'm not even looking. The tight ends are like ghosts to me, and this is also something I've been working on, is trying to see run a pass. And I mean, like a lot of times you go against a really good tackle, and even in this situation, he'll hide it a little bit, and it'll have you playing the run a little bit. But in this situation, I'm thinking, I'm already thinking aggressive because we have a blitz. We got D-Ham coming, so I'm already thinking aggressive. But once I saw the tackle in that position, I'm like, yeah, I already know what I'm going to go to. And then during the film I watched, I saw that he was passive, not too passive with his hands, but he was waiting for you to make contact first. So I was just thinking like, all right, I'm gonna just kind of, you see how even at the end he pulls his hands back again, and I'm not even going for like a double swipe or nothing, but he like pulls his hands back again and kind of lets me
He wants
get
you to
the
show your
chest
cards
right there.
first and leaves his
Exactly.
chest open,
He
right?
like goes like he does a little flash and pulls his
Yeah.
hands back, and
Circle
he
punch.
leaves
Yeah.
his chest wide open, and I'm like, all right, bet I'm just gonna take it because there's no reason, there's no point to try to finesse that because he's just gonna push me by the logo. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
thinking once he opened his chest up, he made it pretty easy for me. I stabbed him, and then I was gonna get off, and I saw Flacco about to throw the ball, and then I just kind of just used my same hands and went over, kind of ended up going over the top of his shoulder and just reaching out, trying to get him off. He kind of opens his when I push on him, he kind of opens his whole entire shoulder up,
He
and I
does.
see
Yeah.
Flacco right there,
Yeah, this one was such
like
a
right there.
Yeah.
And the way he opened it, it was such a weird thing to see on tape because it's like your arm just completely like
Straight line right to the
yeah,
ball.
just slides right through as if he's just like, oh, okay, go ahead. The hand placement for you with that left hand right on that. And again, he allows you to get first touch, and great still shot, Erik. That placement for you. The first time we had you on the show a couple years ago, you talked so much about hand placement and based on the tackle sets and how perpendicular they were to the sideline or not, like what number or what peck you were trying to get your hand on. And your hand placement there is just so good for getting into his body. And it was like what you talked about the first time you had you on, right on that peck, right underneath like that breastplate or chest plate, and it's over as soon as you get that.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, and on this one, I'm thinking sometimes you'll see. I'm sure y'all seen the plays like one versus the Jaguars. I'll stabbing it kind of arm over, but because it's a blitz, even though I'm like I'm going long arm, I still was favoring staying outside because it's like if I were to go inside and we're blitzing, I'm the only one. I'm supposed to be outside. So if Flacco gets out to the right, there's really nobody out there at all. So I'm thinking like, boom. I was thinking the same hand placement, kind of like inside peck ish, but then it ended up just kind of I kept pushing it back. But I favored this with my footwork. I favored making sure I can stay outside if he does. Quarterback ends up stepping back or whatever. I know he's not the most athletic, but still, you know.
You still have the responsibility, and I love that too because usually when you go for that, again, we see it on tape, and you talk about you'll hit that peck, and then it's like followed by that stab, and then bang, you're hitting that arm over. But this one was just weird. You just kept going right through. Got it.
Facts.
It's something that comes up when we talk about your game a lot on social media and on the show. Is a lot of people don't see the nuance to your rushes and what goes into it. This is why we ask you these type of questions, because there's a lot of thought that goes into the power rushes that for some fans, they just think you're just pushing the tackle, but there's a lot of nuance to that and context that is left out. And so here's another one where you're using kind of that stab and long arm against the Cardinals. And I love these rushes because you have these transitions. You talk about the long arm and stab, but then you change up just a little bit on this one. So walk us through this play against the Cards.
Yeah. Well, he was one of those guys I'm filming. I feel like it's becoming more of a thing throughout the years I've been in the league. It's the whole like snatch thing. You see Dion do it a lot.
Yeah,
Dion does it really good. And
he's one of the best.
I mean, he tries to do it, but I'm able to get contact first, and then like I see him like later, like slightly later in the rush, he like he like lifts his hands up and goes like he was gonna. And at first, I was gonna kind of do the same move I did versus the Colts, and just do a long arm and then keep going. But once he moved his hands, I was like, all right, bet I'm just gonna try to dip my shoulder. And then he actually low key when he hits my hands, he helps me out. He helps me out a little bit, and usually it'll make me fall if I didn't see it coming, but I kind of saw it coming. So then I was able to just kind of move my hand a little bit, dip, and then kind of reach my arm out, and then I got him in the hip, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where your length again like shows up there. Like you take that just split second to be like you said, like, oh, your hands are coming off, bet, like let me go for it, and you make that play there. This one's a nice one too, not just from you, like the rest of the defense really kind of breaking everything down around Kyler, starting to compress things a little bit. Is
Absolutely.
it from a rush standpoint, not even just for you, but for the defense, is that still kind of like the MO for the defense, like compress the pocket, or do you think anything kind of changes stylistically, over the years when you guys have been more of like a compression style of rush in the pocket?
Yeah, I would say so. I say definitely just being able to just muddy up the picture in the quarterback's face by just causing just a mess and kind of wreaking havoc in the pocket and not having it just be like a standstill where he just sit back there. Even if we are getting pressure from the outside, you still want to have some push in the face, especially when you're going against a shorter quarterback like Kyler. So being able to get the dudes closer to him, like you see Cam's like Cam's right in front of him. Like he's a big part of the reason why this play happened. He's right in front of him, so that makes it easy for everybody else.
And the thing with your long arm or your stab, I feel like you catch tackles off guard a little bit at times because you're very quick with it. And so I'm wondering, are there little keys or factors you're looking for the offensive tackle, whether it was like the Colts guy kind of doing that circle punch and making those hands disappear? Are there certain things you're looking for? Like, okay, I need to shoot that long arm or stab now versus, a different type of pass rush.
Yeah, I'd say if any play, let's say like on like a second down and long, I rush and then like I don't feel like he really shot his hands or whatever. The next rush I get, I'm probably gonna go some sort of like long arm, sort of long arm or speed to power because he's playing passive and he's playing exactly. He's playing for me to throw double swipes and for he can pull his hands back and kind of push me by the quarterback. So I mean, on this one, I think 74 he was relatively passive. He could get out of there pretty quick and he'd kind of open for him. He was kind of I felt like he was oversetting a little bit. See how he's like he got out pretty far, and there's some space in there. So I felt like whether it's inside move because I hit him with an inside move the first third down in the game, and then on this play, I just knew he was kind of turning his shoulders a little bit too much. I knew I can get my hand right here inside pec and kind of arm over. And then me and DQ, we actually were trying to work a different game, but it ended up just working out naturally. Sometimes that is how it happens on the fly. It happens like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And this one was is a good example, kind of what we were talking about, juxtaposing it with the rep against the Colts. Like usually when they overset a little bit, if you get that hand on that inside pec, you follow through with that arm over and get inside. And I guess just you did such a good job the first time we had you on the show. I just wanted to have you kind of talk about it again. Like talk about your hand placement and how important it is, because I feel like the hands, and this, Erik and I talk about it all the time. Like use of hands is so important to defensive linemen and the battle between the D-line and O-line and how it kind of mirrors what like corners and receivers have. But it's not just about like punching your hand or just throwing it. It's where you place it and the timing of it and how that contributes to you having leverage and being able to get through a guy.
Exactly that. Like you said, it's all about hand placement. It's like when you're doing the long arm or arm over in that way, in that clip right there, it's like you don't want to tap your hand on the chest because if you have your hand on the chest, it's like there's really nothing to grab. I like getting my hand right here on the inside pec because you could literally grab like the breastplate / the armpit area and you have something to actually like put your force into it and grab with your hand. If you have your hand in the middle of somebody's chest, like you could push them back a little bit, but at the same time it's hard to get off. But once you're able to grab onto something, it's easy to transition and hit that arm over. So for me, I know if I got a guy who's oversetting, I'm trying to get my hand in that inside pec for sure every single time. That whatever number it is, 74, I'm trying to get my hand on that close to that 7, opposed to it being on the 4 or in the middle, because then you're kind of just pushing back.
And this is why I love that placement for you, because you're up the field, you're getting up the field, you're threatening them, and then you catch them off guard with that quick long arm or stab. And where you place it matters, because now these guys, again, they're kick sliding, vertically up the field a little bit, and then you're able to place it right there, and you easily get a nice inside lane here because you're able of your placement there, and you just wash them by, and you get that inside lane. So that placement for you is great because you catch them off guard. There's that element of surprise, but then there's also that length, and even there you have like you grab cloth a little bit, almost like a push pull with that power speed, the power move. So that's why I love that move for you. And again, I think a lot of fans don't realize that you transition there, and that you have developed those transitions since you've been in the league.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go on.
It's different than just going speed to power and just full rush and being able to hit somebody with a stab and then arm over. That's a 2-part move.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of a 2-part move, here's a play versus the Titans, the second to last play. I want you to talk about, again, the timing of the offensive tackles, punch, the weight distribution, kind of what we just alluded to, and the move you used on this tackle here against the Titans.
Yeah. So I felt like this guy wasn't too passive. You see his shoulders are kind of leaning forward there. His profile is going forward a little bit, but I felt like just his demeanor was like almost like some tackles would be like, I got to get on him and I can't let him power me. So it's like me seeing that, like him he's like going back and he looks a little anxious and he's about to kind of shoot at me. I'm like, I'm just going to power him because I feel like he doesn't want me to power him. You know what I mean? He's like coming at me. So for him, I was like, I knew I was strong enough to push him back. So for me, I made sure I got that hand inside again, because I knew at the end of the play I would need that inside hand if I want to make a play and want to be able to transition over. Because one thing just to push him all the way back, It's another thing to be able to get off it. So right there, I think he maybe moves my other hand out the way, my outside hand, but that didn't matter because I knew I just wanted to get to the depth of Rudolph. Rudolph wasn't really running around too much, so I knew if I can just get to the depth, I can cover my outside lane and then come underneath.
You in this game, you had 11 pressures. It
Yeah.
was just like an onslaught from you. When you're in that kind of, it was a lot
Yeah.
were like this, just dominant reps, a lot of power. When you're kind of in the middle of a game like this, is this one where, like, did you start to smell blood? Because a lot of it came against this right tackle. Did you know, like, oh, I got him, or like I'm in my bag, or I'm in a certain sweet spot, or he can't handle me? Like, did you smell or feel that blood in the water and know that you had something going?
Absolutely. It was like, I think it was I want to say the first quarter. I think if we were going that same way towards the tunnel, yeah, I think it was first quarter, had a rush on him. It was like not meaningless, but like it was a normal third down. I think they completed it, maybe
it
it
was
was
like
a
a
third
check down, I
five.
think, out to the
Yeah, something like
flats.
that. Yeah, something like that. And I pushed him all the way back. Like I didn't even get a hit, but I
The
probably
ball got out.
pressured for it. Yeah, and I was thinking, I was like, all right, that's interesting. So I knew as the game
Noted.
as the game went on, I noted that, put a note in my pocket, and I knew I was like, all right, I'm gonna come back to that at some point. I'm gonna eat off that. So I mean, that was in the back of my mind the whole game. I was waiting for that to happen. I ended up only having 0.5 sacks that game, but I feel like that was my best game of the year.
Yeah, you filled up the stat. We go all the time like talking about how valuable pressures are, and just from like a pressure standpoint, you had let's see, the game against Detroit, you had 9, but this one against Tennessee, 11 pressures, and it just felt like so I feel like 9 or 10 of them like came just off that against that right tackle, and you were just bullying him like from the jump. Yeah.
Now, what'd you call this move? Because we see it a lot. You kind of lead with the long arm and stab the inside hand, but you also have your left hand that is very active. Do you have a specific name for this? I know it's something you probably worked on in the offseason as well.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the left hand, I was just trying to hand check him with my left so he doesn't really grab me. So I kind of pushed that elbow down. I pushed the elbow down from the inside. I knew like I didn't need to do anything fancy with my left hand and with his right hand, but I knew I needed to kind of just break his contact so he doesn't have 2 hands on me, because the other hand I'm just sticking my right hand in there, so he might kind of grab my shoulder pad. But if I can move his left hand and I got 2 hands on him, he got 1 hand on me, I know I'm gonna win that. And then like we talked about with my right hand, I'm just thinking being able to get my hand on the inside peck and the arm over. And then another thing with this one I say is because of the way he's setting he's not like he's coming out. See how he's coming out a little bit? The dude from the Jaguars, he was going back. So I feel like he left me more space. So and opposed to that rush, with a dude like this, see how he's kind of in front of Rudolph by like 2 yards? I can't just stick the stab in and go over the top.
It's more of an angle, 45.
Yeah, exactly. I had to push him back first, so then the outside lane is open for the quarterback, and then go underneath because he's coming at me at a 45 and not just going all straight back vertical.
Man, love it. It's beautiful. I feel bad for that tackle, but yeah, it is what it is.
Now, the last clip here is a similar move against the Cardinals. So walk us through this against a very good right tackle and here from the Cardinals early in the year, obviously. But same type of thing, right? And obviously flattening to the quarterback and making a big play.
Yeah, I say same type of thing right here. I felt like he was also passive as well. The way he was going back was kind of out and then like. I think he went out and then straight back again, and then once he turned sideways. So at first I was thinking go outside, but just the way he turned all the way sideways, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna push him back to pass Kyler and then come underneath the same way I did versus the Jaguars. And then he was, I feel like he was, not to say it was easy to push back, but he didn't help himself because he got back so far. He kept going backwards the whole rep, even before I'm in contact with him. He see how he's still going backwards.
He's trying to anchor, right? He's
exactly.
Trying to set those stakes down and anchor versus you, and you just make his knees buckle.
Oh, for sure.
You've had, even just in these clips now that we're showing, and kind of how you're verbalizing the tackle sets and what you're doing and your hand placement, the moves and plan and everything. One of the phrases that you used a bunch when we had you on a couple years ago, you kept talking like the difference between year 1 and year 2. And how, as you had gotten more experience, you weren't drinking out of the fire hose as much. Like you kept using that. And, where definitely. You are now in your career, how much smaller has that fire hose gotten for you now? Because it just seems like you're so purposeful in what you're doing. Obviously, you've got more experience, so it makes sense. But when we spoke to you a couple years ago, one of the big things for us was just how smart you were and how much you understood the game. And so I just wanted to ask you now, like how much smaller has that fire hose gotten for
Yeah.
you now that you've been in the league for a good chunk of time?
I say it's gotten a lot. It's gotten a lot smaller. Now it's like a straw drinking out of a smoothie. You know what I'm saying? Opposed to a fire hose. Obviously, it's still hard, and I'm not where I want to be yet. And I know there's a ways where my game can grow, and I can throw in some more different rushes and curveballs in there and stuff. But just when it comes to the simple, like there's the right way to do things and there's the wrong way to do things. I feel like I have a good mindset with that, and I have a good idea of what I need to do. And also the type of player I am. I'm not gonna be the guy who's gonna like throw double swipes and have 10 pressures in that way the whole entire game. That's just not your game. And I feel like a lot of times in the league, you see dudes of success, and it's like it's all about embracing your role and what you're good at and how you could excel and succeed. And when I talked to y'all a couple years ago, I didn't all the way know that yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm still trying some new things, but I feel like I got kind of like a foundation of how I want to play, and then I could just kind of move off of that and throw in inside moves and maybe some more double swipes
Change
and
up the
a
curveball.
cross
Yeah.
chop here and there, whatever, some change ups. But I feel like for me, it's aggressive. It's right at you, and that's just the way I play. Some people might not like it, but I mean, it works for me. And you can't try to get outside the framework of your body to be any type of different player than the player you are. You know what I mean?
And I think that it really speaks to the scheme as well. I think you're a perfect
Mhm.
fit for this type of scheme for that reason.
Absolutely.
So the Bills are retooling along the D line. They obviously added big name and Joey Bosa. So what type of things are you studying maybe of his game, but more
hmm
importantly, guys that maybe lined up opposite him and how his impact could and not just impact guys, next to him, but across from him like yourself. And like what type of things do you study or look for now that he's added to the lineup?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just seeing how could both of us maximize our potential and make things hard for the other online. You know what I'm saying? And not just me and both of them, me and whoever, whether it's Ed next to me
Hmm.
or me and Ed being on one side and both on another, and then online having to choose which way to slide through. Just
Right.
so I haven't been able to watch too much film yet, but I mean I'm definitely gonna I know maximize for sure just how I could work off of and play with him. I feel like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
One of the things you talked about too the last time you were here, we used it more from like a game perspective with you and whatever, defensive tackle is inside you, but you talked about,
Yeah,
if you're running a game with Ed versus running a game with Daquan,
yeah,
what their get offs are like and how they're different, how they operate and how that
yeah.
changes your timing and how you operate. What does that look like from an edge to edge perspective? Do you have a similar kind of approach or study with like
hmm
if it's you and Epinesa rushing, or if it was you and Vaughn, or in this
hmm
case, if
Yeah,
it's like you and Bosa, are you going to watch tape on Bosa to see how he
yeah.
kind of operates? Obviously, the play call factors in as well. If you know what's going on the front side, if your backside you have contained, so on and so forth.
hmm
But do you also have that kind of plan or acknowledgement from a relationship with the edge that's opposite of you in terms of how you work together and or how they like to play?
Yeah, I'd say so. Absolutely. I feel like a lot of times with Vaughn, I'd go power and then he'd go speed, and we'd be going working high lows because
High
that's
low.
that's that's
Yeah.
kind of yeah, that's his game, and the power is kind of my game. So I mean, excited to see what it is after being able to talk to Bosa. Hopefully this spring, excited to see what we figure out and what we like. But I mean, just things like that. I mean, when you have that chemistry and you can build that and you can both be on the same page, it's definitely a special thing. And it's harder than it looks because you'll talk before play like, all right, we're gonna do high low, and then boom, the play call come in and it'll be a blitz. Well, we both got to stay outside, or we both got to come inside, and you're like, damn. And then the next play might be 2 minutes, so the next play might be no huddle. So you're like rushing to the ball because they completed a pass for 6 yards, whatever it is, and you're like, all right, now you're just rushing. So it's like being able to build that chemistry and or maybe even come up with signals, hand signals, quick things that kind of just get things going, having that chemistry. I feel like that's what training camps, OTAs and training camps for. So I mean, I know I'm excited to get back to it, and I'm looking forward to wrestling with a dude like him.
One more question for me. We're talking about the impact of Bosa, but one big narrative right now this offseason is the Bills retooling the D line more so from a run defense standpoint, adding, good run defenders, and mainly the fan base is looking for a space eater up front and nose tackle to
Yeah.
go with Daquan Jones. So having a guy hypothetically that is in the 320, 330 range to be more of that early down, first and second down run defender, how does that change your pass rush plan at all when we're talking going after the quarterback?
Um, does it change my plan? I'd say whenever I wouldn't say it changes it, but I feel like it'll make it easier for both edges because you see more guards. The guard might be on the center might be blocking the one thing, and then the guard's staying there for a little bit longer, and maybe that's leaving an inside move open, or maybe that's leaving the tackle susceptible to losing his one-on-one because he has to cover his one-on-one for another half a second, which goes a long way. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot easier when the guard can just touch real quick and then move out to the DN. Then it's like he doubled two people on one play. You know what I'm saying? It's a 2-for-1. So I feel like yeah, when you're pushing the pocket, it opens up things for everybody on D line, and it goes a long way. And I feel like we're gonna get back to that for sure. And we've had times where we've done it. You know what I'm saying? I always go back to the first couple of games, 2023, like with Ed and DQ in there.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was eating and
everyone was eating.
Yeah, everybody was eating.
Saquon was playing at like an all-pro level too.
It's sad. It's sad. It pissed me off that he ended up having that injury. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad he's working his way back from that, and he's playing some good ball too. So he has a hard job. He has a hard job.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. And this plays to the point we've been harping the entire year. And it's not just about how big the guy is, the 330-pound guy. You know, the guy, especially talking nose tackle and Daquan Jones, he's not the biggest guy, but he is disruptive. And that is really, as you said, more important because there are many ways for a nose tackle to win. Sometimes it's with explosiveness and quickness into that gap to make that guard, stay a little longer. Sometimes it's just a big guy that is just disruptive from a power and strength for him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's, like you said, there's two of them. There's a dude who can get in that gap real fast, and like you said, there's somebody like people like Vita Vea or whatever who just people just gotta honor that. That's a really big dude. That's a strong dude, and you gotta keep some resources over there, and it makes everybody around them better. Same thing with a DN being able to attract double teams from the guard and singling up the one tech if the guard is just flying out there on certain occasions. So yeah,
the timing of it from the inside aspect that you just mentioned too is I think is an aspect that doesn't get noticed a lot for fans. I think so many people normally think of like, oh, well, like someone inside can create a true one-on-one on the outside, and that's true. But even if it's just like you said, like just that half a second where that guard does he have to stay helping the center just a little bit before he can get out and help the tackle, and that half second can be a huge difference, especially when like normally like QB dropbacks are like between 2.5 to 3 seconds. If you can add another half or add another beat, especially for someone like you with your length and ability to get to the quarterback, like that half a second
goes a long way.
Yeah.
It's the difference. It's the difference between a whole bunch of quarterback hits or a whole bunch of sacks. You know what I mean? Or it's the difference between pressures and QB hits.
Yeah. Especially when teams are trying to throw quick game at you.
Get the ball out fast.
And all
Absolutely.
that. All that jazz. Greg, we appreciate the hell out of you taking the time
for sure.
For us. Yeah, you did it a couple years ago and we loved it. You did it again now. We loved it again. And just you've been able to come on here, especially for like we talked about offline, like for a guy who's so, I mean, everybody in the NFL is physically imposing, but for you with your length and your power, being able to see you come on here and talk about like the science of the game and break it down and be able to showcase your football IQ and how smart you are. It's a tremendous treat for us. It's a tremendous treat for our viewers and our listeners. And we just appreciate the hell out of you taking the time, and we wish you the best this offseason, this season. Good luck spending all that cash that you got. You deserve it. You enjoy it.
Appreciate that.
We appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Sure, I appreciate y'all having me. It's always fun. It's always fun. Y'all know what y'all talking about. Like we said offline. Y'all know what y'all talking about. Y'all good ones.
Thank you, brother. We appreciate it, man. We'll be in touch, and I'll be sure to get you back in here soon.
For sure. Let's do it.
Thanks, brother.
Later, peace.
Awesome stuff, man. I love it. I love, talking X's and O's with a guy like that. Yeah. Well, again, he was pretty raw coming into the league.
Yeah.
And we've been able to study him closely, but also, get to hear the development. We get to hear and him admit his strengths, his weaknesses, things he can work on. But over time, we got to see it, not just on the film, but also in the film room.
And it was cool going back to, and as I mentioned it several times in the episode, like it was cool going back and watching our episode with him in the 2023 offseason and seeing what he was saying then versus what he was saying now, how he showed up on tape then versus now. And just, his progression physically and on the field and how he's executing, but also mentally, how he sees the game, how he's able to speak to the game and how that's just changed. And this is also what's exciting. I think it's part of the exciting part of the contract that he got. He's still on an upward trajectory.
I think he is too.
Like he's still ascending. He's made, whether it's a pass rush or run defender, he's made small to large improvements in almost every aspect of his game year after year, like you can legitimately say that that trend could continue and he could continue to get better.
It's funny because when we had him on a few years ago and just talking to him behind the scenes, he admitted that, early on, he's like, you know what, I needed to be an elite, to play on the field a lot. I needed to be a good run defender. So he focused on that and he became elite pretty quickly in that regard. One of the best DNs at setting the edge and stopping the run. And then you start to see the incremental, changes and trends in the proper direction of his pass rush game. And then now you got to hear some of it. And the details back when we interviewed him in 23 was, when they bumped him inside a couple times, the little things about like, hey, he's wearing a lighter jersey, like that type of stuff was cool to hear. But then now you're seeing, and what we wanted to show tonight was how the scheme affects him as a run defender, but also as a pass rusher, and how there's a lot to process in this scheme. It's not a scheme where they just cut loose their DNs. Those DNs are critical in the run and the pass game. And not only are his physical measurables important to this scheme because of what they do and ask of him, but you're starting to see the football IQ and that acumen come out.
Yeah, and we've seen it really with so many of the guys we've had here. But Daquan Jones was another one when we had him in, and he's talking about recognizing.
We got to get him back in.
Yeah, he's a guy. We should do that. Just keep it rolling. Yeah, it's been too long for DQ. And he would talk about okay, on this play, I'm talking, I recognize the formation, the alignment, so I'm thinking this, and then the guard is doing this, so I'm trying to get over to the top to cut this off. Like there's so much on the Bills' defensive line, physically and mentally, across the board, because of what we talked about a bit in this episode, what we talked about consistently: too high safety structures, lighter boxes, nickel defenses, like all of these things like add and stack on one another. And you have a lot on your plate, pre-snap, post-snap, right on the snap, and then you have to tie it all together physically in the blink of an eye between like 2 to 3 seconds. It's tremendously taxing to have to play in this role, which is it. And just to get back to Rousseau, which is why we talked about why he's so valuable as a defender for this team, because he's a force multiplier with what he can do just against the run, but then with what he's been able to do as a pass rusher. And it was cool to see, like you said, being able to kind of give some people a peek behind the curtain at how difficult that job is, because it's not easy.
There's a lot of stress on these DNs and front 6 or 7, depending on the down and distance. Those 4 D linemen, those 2 linebackers, they see that light box a lot. And you see Rousseau in a lot of those advanced metrics, as we talked about earlier. He's up there with the best of them. And again, he's still coming along as a pass rusher, but we're starting to see those transitions. We're starting to see those counters, but he will never get away from where he hangs his hat, and that's his length. That's that long arm, that stab, and winning first touch consistently.
Yeah, him being able to, like you touched on when he was here, and like we touched on so much, he's just such a good scheme fit for what they want to do, who they want to be, and how he operates. And yeah, you see it statistically, you see it from an efficiency standpoint, you see it from a volume standpoint, you see it on the tape. And yeah, it was an awesome time to be able to get him in here again and be able to chop it up once more. Erik, anything else on your mind for the good people before we say goodbye?
Well, if you enjoyed that sit down with Greg Rousseau, go back and watch Michael Hoyt's interview and breakdown. We did some film with him as well. Obviously, Terrell Bernard, man, you know me. I'm still riding high on that interview. Guy is just mentally on another level. And go back and watch that again. These are fun. I love it because, again, not many outlets or media types get the access to the football side of things when it comes to players. And so we see a lot of the process and results oriented stuff that happens on the field, but we don't often get to hear the why behind it and the context behind it. And I hope that not only the interviews, prior weeks, but the interview with Rousseau really kind of highlights that. And as of right now, we have Alec Anderson penciled in for next week. So stay tuned for that. And I'm just going to keep this ball rolling. I'm going to try to get as many as we can before this season starts, because I think this is so critical for fans to see how smart these players actually are and the amount of things that they have to process regardless of what position they play.
Yeah, and it's an awesome treat for us to kind of be able to give that to you folks, and you guys be able to hear it from the horse's mouth directly and get that peek behind the curtain. And yeah, it's awesome to see like a 3-course meal served up in front of you, but it's also cool to see how it's prepared at times
Yeah.
and know what the kitchen staff has to go through and how they get to make that tremendous meal that you're about to consume. So yeah, we hope you folks enjoyed this episode. If you are watching on YouTube, please drop a like on this video, turn on notifications for the Cover One Film Room playlist, subscribe to the Cover One channel where we have a multitude of Bills content coming for you every single day of the week. If you're listening to this episode on one of the audio platforms, that is just as much appreciated on our end. Please rate and review and subscribe to the Cover One Film Room on whatever audio platform you are listening to this show on. Word of mouth, like we always talk about, is also tremendously helpful. It's how this is an organic, grassroots type of brand. So a lot of the success early on and still to this day is, somebody telling somebody else about this episode from this channel or this guest or this person or whoever. So if you enjoyed this, ratings, likes, subscriptions, all that kind of stuff, but also just good word of mouth and telling a Bills fan or a football fan about it is also tremendously, tremendously helpful. And whatever form or fashion your support comes in, we greatly appreciate it and we're tremendously thankful for it. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Erik Turner, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We will see you when we see you. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.